Hi everyone, and welcome back. So this is now going to be part 3, section D of our Scratch game. So I think we should get the game finished in this part this week. So once you're into Scratch, you need to go up to the My Stuff folder where we left it last time. We just need to click See Inside, and that'll bring us back to our game program. So I think last time we managed to get all of our enemies on screen and moving around, got our controls and everything. So now we need to put some variables in. What we're going to be focusing on once we've got the variables is this program that we made last time, which is sensing whether any of the enemies are touching our player character. So they've all got this exactly the same one. First thing then, let's do some scoring with this. So we're going to go over to, let's just go on to the crab sprite. It's just an easy place to keep them. Let's go over to variables. I'm going to click on make a variable, and we're going to call it score. That will appear up at the top here. So if we double click that, and every time you double click it, it just cycles through. So I want it just on the number, and I'm just going to move it up into the corner there. So it's as out of the way as we can get it on this stage. In terms of scoring, what I want to do with this is every time we advance towards the far side, we're going to give people a point for this. At the beginning of a game, though, we need to set our score back to 0. So I'm going to go to events, and we're going to say that when the green flag, when the start button is clicked, back to variables, we're going to set, and it's important not to leave it there with my variable, we change it to the one we just made, score. So we're going to set the score to 0. That's the start of the new game. Whilst we're still on that one, we're not going to use set, we're going to use change, the next one. So we're going to change the score by 1, and I'm going to put that on the program for the W key. The W key is the one that we use to move upwards. Just space these out slightly. So what we should get there, if I run the game, every time we move forward, we get an extra point there. What I'm going to do with that as well then is take the same thing again, change the score, and we're going to put a -1 on that, and put that one on the S key. So every time now we have to go back again, we're going to lose a mark, but we gain one every time we move forward. Once we get to the top, we actually want some reason for getting there, so we're going to find something to collect. So we're going to go to choose a new sprite, and choose sprite. I'm going to go with food. It doesn't really matter which one you pick. So it doesn't really matter which one you pick, but you want something with fairly solid colours. That's maybe not a very suitable one because it's got quite a few colours on it. So I'm just going to go with the apple here. So if we put that up at the top, we're going to need to resize it slightly so that it will fit. So that's okay in there. It doesn't matter too much about the y coordinate. The x coordinate we'll put in the 0. The y doesn't have to be an even number because we're not going to be animating this. So the first thing that we're going to do, let's find the right place, events. So although we're not animating, we do want it to go back into that position in case it gets moved at any point when someone's clicking on the screen. So we're just going to go into motion, go to, and it's 0, 157, which is the location that that's in right at the moment. Then we are going to add a program to detect when our crab is touching that. So we're going to go back to the crab. I'm going to get a new program here. So when the flag is clicked, because we're sensing, so we're going to sense. If we use the way that we did for the enemy sprites, where forever touching, and we put the apple on it, we'll have to have 3 programs when we add the other 2 apples on it. So instead I'm going to use the touching colour, and this is why I said if we get something with a fairly solid colour on there. So we click on this one, go down to the dropper tool, and that'll let you, there's like a magnifier there, and we just click. So then wherever it's touching the red colour is what we're going to do. So we're going to control, so if touching the red colour, then we don't just want to check once at the beginning of the game, we need to keep checking, which is why we put that forever loop in there. So if we're touching the apple there, then first of all we're going to give ourselves a score increase of 10 points. What would happen with that though, let's do it so I can actually show you, is that once you got there you would just keep on constantly getting 10 points because it's just going around and around there. So before we actually give it that score change, we're going to move our player character back again. So if we go to motion and we want the go to, so at the moment it's set to exactly where our crab is. Initially, let's just set it the same as our starting position. So we're at 0, minus 175. And we put that inside there. So let's just test that. Our score's gone back to 0 like I wanted. So when we get that, we come back down to here. Now it is though sometimes easier then for players to jump straight into the path of the enemies again. So we're going to do this just very slightly different. We're going to bring it in from this side of the screen. So if we look at our programs, we don't allow our player to be further up than 200. So we're going to go to 290 x is 200 and minus 175. So let's just run that again, and it brings us down here. Next thing then, we're going to use this glide command. It's set to 0, minus 175, which is our start position. So we're going to put that one in there. Run the program again. So now it should come to the bottom and slide back over to that side again. That just gives us enough of a delay that people aren't going to jump straight off there again. And just before we do that glide, because we've got this away from our apple, we're going to then put our 10 points on. And our 10 points have come with any of that. We're going to then go back to the apple itself, and we're going to do kind of the opposite end of that now. So again, we want with events, so when we run the program, we're going to use an if then and a forever loop. So we're sensing again now, so we need to go to sensing, and on this one we can use this. So if our apple is touching the crab, now remember that our crab program we just made is going to, as soon as the crab touches that, it's going to go back down here. So what we don't want to happen is for the apple to disappear in that fraction of a second when they touch, because sometimes the computer misses that then and it doesn't actually register that you've touched the other sprite. So what we're going to do here, when the apple is touching the crab, we're just going to give a very slight delay, so just maybe half a second there. Then we're going to go to looks, and we're going to, inside that if then loop, we're going to hide the apple. Useful to bring it back again though, so whilst we're still on looks, we're going to do two things. We're going to put a show in our setup program there, and I'm just going to keep one of them to put in this one in a minute. So we're going to, when it's touching the crab, wait half a second and hide the apple. We're going to go into operators, and we're going to pick up with our random number generator here, into control, and our wait command, drop the random number in there, and then put that just underneath hide. Then we can put our show back in there again. So what we're going to get every time we touch that sprite, half a second later, whilst our character is still down here and gliding across the screen, that one's going to be hidden. At a random time, up to 10 seconds later, it will come back again. So if we just test that, so we're coming down here, the apple's disappeared, and sometime in the next 10 seconds that should come back again. Hopefully. There it is. Because on our crab we were touching a colour and not this specific sprite, that makes it very easy now to right click and duplicate. Or if you remember, if you're on a Mac, hold down the control key and click to duplicate. So that gives us our second one, which I'm going to place there, and we duplicate again to get our third one, which we're going to place about there. Last thing that we're going to do, because we duplicated these two sprites of the original one, it's going to put them in the same position there. So we just need to have a quick look at these coordinates and try and get them, well, not try and get them, put them the same up there. So our x there is that's minus 170. So that's what we need to have up here in our starting position. And that is, I might just round that off actually to 160. So it's the same on this one, but we want it opposite that now. So on the last one, we're going to put that as 170. And then our Y coordinate will be the same. So 160 on that one. At this point, we've covered quite a bit there. I would pause the video, go and build these in Scratch, make sure that you save your program and then come back again. So once you've got that done, you've got that saved and you're up to date, the next thing that we're going to look at now is our number of lives, and then we'll start turning on that collision detection then. So we're going to go back to our main player sprite, the crab. Let's go into variables. Again, let's make a variable, call it lives, and click OK. We're going to set our number of lives to 3, and because this is our setup program here, we can just put those on there. You could, if you wanted to do both of these two, could have gone on this program over at the side. I just like to keep the variables together on that part. So you can see now we've got a new variable here. Double click and just drop that up in the corner. If you remember, in the last part we created this program so that if one of our enemy sprites is touching the crab, our player, it does this broadcast caught. Broadcast is just exactly what it sounds like. It's as if each of the sprites has got a radio and they broadcast this word caught, and every other sprite can pick it up, and it means then that we can trigger things on different sprites. So if we go to crab, over here in events, and we want when I receive. So the other sprites are broadcasting, this one is going to receive. When I receive caught, then we need to decide exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to make it very similar to this one. So I can right click and duplicate the inside part of that. We're not going to go to an x of 200, we're going to go to an x of minus 200. We're not going to give someone 10 points when they get caught. So you could take points off, but the fact that we're already taking lives off means it's maybe not absolutely necessary. So I'm going to take that one away. Let's give that a test. Let's click the flag, and we just need to go and collide with one of our sprites. So that's moved us to the side there. This will be a good place to pause the video and get caught up on the programs, and then we'll just we've got 2 more programs and we'll be finished with this. Okay, so if you're all caught up with everything there, we've got our player colliding and moving down to here. So now we're going to make that affect the number of lives. So we're going to our variables and we want change. Make sure that that's set on lives and not on score or anything. So we're going to change the number of lives by -1. We're going to put that just after the go-to, so just it gets to that side there and moves it out of the way of the enemy sprites. Just to make it really clear that we've had that collision, also going to go into looks. We're going to use this one, change color effect. So we're also going to put that just after the go-to command. That will shift the color slightly. What we would normally do to get back is put change color by -25. On this game though, it is possible to hit one of the enemy sprites twice, which means that you'd have a color effect change by 50 and it wouldn't go back. So we're going to avoid that by using set color effect to 0. So if we just test that one out, so we get that color change, it comes up here and we're down to 2 lives there. Final one then is when that number of lives is 0, the game is over with. So into events, when the flag is clicked, we're going to need an if then, so we can detect whether the game is over. We're going to need to do that forever from the beginning of the game. Into variables, and we want lives down here. If we're going to compare the number of lives to anything, we're going to need an operator, and we need the less than operator there. So I'm going to say if the number of lives is less than 1, then we don't use the equals, because if you collide twice in the middle of the game, your number of lives might go to -1, in which case it will not equal 0. So we always just go with a less than if possible. So if the number of lives is less than 1, people who've done the previous videos, the previous lessons, we did one where we made a game over sprite here, and you can get that then to appear over the top. You could continue and do that with this one, but I'm aware of the length of this video. I'm going to try to finish off with something a little bit simpler. We'll go up to looks. We're going to get the one that says say hello for 2 seconds. We're going to change that to game over and put that inside. And then to make certain that the game is actually over, we're going to go into control and we're going to put a stop all just underneath that one. Final thing, just to avoid any problems, sometimes when you start a game off and it resets the number of lives, that can take a fraction of a second when we've got other programs running. So we don't want this program to start instantly. So we're just going to have, from the control, we'll have wait 1 second, but it doesn't really need to be that long. Let's put 0.2 of a second and put this one in. So your last thing really is just to test the game out. You could, at this point, if we just pull apart that program, the one that's detecting whether you've had the collision signal sent, it means that we can go straight up to the top and we can test that these are working. Okay, we know our score is working. So we'll just test each of these. Put that one back on. Final test then of the number of lives. And make sure that we can collide with pretty much all of those sprites. Yeah, and you see that went green there because of that colour change just at the end. Okay, so that's the end of this one. You could add some other things to this. You could add other enemies. You could have these moving around. You could possibly have a very slow moving enemy going across some of the safe areas towards the end just to make it a little bit more difficult. But that would be entirely up to you. So see you next time.